Okay, everyone, it's time. Well, it's not that time. It's not time for top 10 just yet. That'll be in a couple weeks. But I wanted to highlight my favorite book that I read from each month of the year, because in my reading journal here, I track every single month. After the month wraps, I go through and I do like my monthly stats and whatever. And I also track what my favorite read of the month was. So some of these, it kind of surprised me looking back, because some of these books I kind of forgot about. I love them, don't get me wrong. All of these truly are favorites. But a lot of these aren't going to make the cut for top 10. And a lot of books that are making it on my top 10 aren't in this list. So originally I was kind of debating. I was like, do I want to do this video? Will it be too repetitive? But honestly, it's really not going to be that repetitive. But I still love all these books, and some of them you will be seeing on top 10, but some of them you won't. And I still want to highlight them because they were my favorites of the month. And you might also be looking at this and being like, Michaela, some of your absolute favorites are missing. That's because some months I read like 5 favorites. The months ebb and flow. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump right in. So January, kicking it off at the beginning of the year, my favorite book that I read that month, Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home by Jessa Hastings. So this one follows Magnolia and BJ, and it is their second book. It's the third book in the Magnolia Parks universe. So I can't really get into a ton of plot stuff for this one specifically because it is the second book following the same couple, and you do have to read Magnolia Park's just the first book in order to read this one. But I truly just remember reading this one at the beginning of the year and just being so emotionally invested in these two characters. So it follows Magnolia and BJ, and they are both like high society, rich kids living in London, and both of their families are like very, very affluent, and they have a very hot and cold on and off relationship. They're always breaking up. They're always getting back together. They're very toxic. At the beginning of the first book in Magnolia Parks, BJ has cheated on Magnolia and he really wants her back, but she just like can't forgive him. And the course of that first book is them just kind of like going back and forth. And then this one is the continuation of their story. But truly, I just felt like there had to be something between these two. Had to be a reason that they always found their way back to each other, no matter how bad for each other they were. And you really just find out all of the reasons why these two can't shake each other. And it was just, I remember like crying at it. It ended on a huge cliffhanger. I'm still really highly anticipating their next book. And yeah, this was my favorite book back from January. Okay, so next up we had February. The month of February, and my favorite book of that month was Heavy Crown by Sophie Lark. This is the 6th book and the last book in the Brutal Birthright series. This one follows Sebastian and Yelena, and I just love the Brutal Birthright series, but this book just really like brought the series home on a high note for me. I was really anticipating Sebastian's story. He's the youngest son of one of the mafia families, and you saw all of his siblings' relationships play out in earlier books, and I was just really highly anticipating his. I feel like there's a weird glare from this book. Do you see that? I think you'll be able to see that more in editing, but I think there's weird glare. Sorry about that. So he was originally on track to go to the NBA and like kind of be out of the mafia family business and everything. However, there was an accident that happened in book 1 where his knee was broken and he basically had to quit playing basketball. So now he's like, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to join the family business. And one night Sebastian is walking home and he ends up seeing this woman about to be abducted, and because he's a good guy, he steps in and stopped it. Little did he know that that was actually a setup by Yelena and her father. Yelena is the daughter of the rival of Sebastian's family, and he kind of orchestrated this whole thing to kind of set Sebastian up and lure Sebastian in with Yelena, and using her to kind of get revenge on Sebastian and his family. But Sebastian falls in love, and even though Yelena is supposed to be doing this for revenge, she ends up falling in love too. There's something that happens halfway through this book where my jaw dropped. Truly it dropped. I loved this one. Savage Lover is still my favorite of the entire series, but this one is my second favorite. I truly loved this book. I kind of forgot how much I loved it until I was looking back at this list. Okay, next we got March. We got, I think, the darkest book that I have on this list potentially, or one of the darkest. That's Sick Love by Jessie Hall. Actually kind of matches my sweatshirt a little bit. My artificial suicide sweatshirt. Ooh, I kind of love that. It looks really good together. Anyways, so that's Sick Love, Arrow and Brienne. I've talked about this book a lot. I love it. It's a stalker cult kind of romance. So Brienne, she is still thick in it, in a cult, and she is actually getting ready to ascend to a leadership position. She's going to be like the first female leader of this cult. She's very excited about that. However, there are some people within the organization that are not so thrilled about a woman stepping up to this level in the cult and don't really want Brienne to reach any sort of status. And they are not afraid to stop her. And Arrow is her stalker. And let me tell you, he's not like a in the shadows kind of stalker. He's an up in your face, up in your business kind of stalker. There's like no slow burn in terms of like the psychological games. It like jumps right into it and he's like up in her face right from the start. And he's kind of trying to show her and pull her out of the cult and show her that these people don't have her best interest at their heart. Like everything that she's been raised to believe is not the truth and not what she should just be like dedicating her entire life to, and trying to like pull her out of that. And obviously it gets deeper and more twisted and everything. I just absolutely loved this. One of my favorite dynamics of all time in a romance book is when our hero pushes our heroine because he sees that she has potential. He sees that she has some like strength built down deep inside of herself that she doesn't even know that she can tap into, and seeing him push and push and push and pulling that out of her and pushing her to her fullest potential. And Arrow does that beautifully with her. He is so like damaged and bad boy and, you know, touch her hand, I'll kill you. And oh, it's just so good. I truly, truly loved this book so much. Next up, we go from like one of the, you know, like kind of messed up ones to truly one of the most wholesome ones, and that is Tangled Like Us by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is the 4th book in the Like Us series, and it's the spin-off of the Addicted Calloway Sisters series. Jane and Thatcher just own my entire heart and soul. I had the best time reading this book, reading this series to begin with. I've read the first 5 books and I loved each and every one of them. But Tangled Like Us did end up taking my top spot for what was this, May? So Jane is the daughter of 2 very wealthy and powerful business people, public figures, whatever. You get her parents' stories there, Rose and Connor from Kiss the Sky of the Calloway Sisters series. So if you have read that series, then you know like kind of what the families are. And they are very publicly in the spotlight, and Jane is very much a public figure. However, she is just kind of like, she's not like flailing in life. She just doesn't really have like a purpose. She doesn't really know what she really wants to do. Her parents are both very like high power driven business people, like who just are very accomplished, and she doesn't really know where her place is and all of that. So she's just trying to find that, and like the public doesn't help, like always trying to compare her to her parents. And Thatcher is her bodyguard, and Thatcher is this big ass brooding Italian man who's like, I'm just here to like do my job or whatever. But then, and he's like a real stickler for the rules, but then he just can't help. This just, like what, I don't even know how to describe it. He just has like a soft spot for Jane. He truly does. He sees how she is just like genuinely a good person and how the public just rips her to pieces. And he's like, how dare you talk about Jane like that? Like she's supposed to be his client, but he just can't help but feeling a little bit more towards her, even if that means breaking all of the rules. And they do end up getting into a little bit of a fake dating sort of relationship because circumstances come about where they kind of have to like create this plan. But I'll let you read it and find out about that. So it is fake dating and it's also bodyguard. It is just so good. I love these two so much. I was really excited to get to Jane's book out of anyone's in the series because Rose and Connor are my favorite characters from the first book, and Jane did not disappoint. I absolutely loved her. And Thatcher is just sexy. He is just sexy, and I loved this book so much. Now we got one of the more emotional ones on the list. So we're really going, oh my god, I missed March. I missed March. Let me go back. How could I miss March? Sorry. So it went Magnolia Parks, Heavy Crown, and then March was Even If It Hurts by Marty Mann. How dare I forget this book? One of my favorites. Where do I even begin with this one? I truly don't even know. So this book just blew me away. It hit me in a way that I was not anticipating. So this one follows Chloe, and at the beginning of this book, she's in college and she goes over to the UK to study abroad for a semester. And when she's over there, she's just having like a lot of life experiences. And when she's over there, she ends up meeting Oliver. And they fall in love and they have this whirlwind kind of romance. She experiences a lot of things with him. And truly, once their time is ticking down together, she doesn't really know how she's going to leave him behind. And he doesn't want her to leave either, but she does end up getting a job opportunity back home. And he's like, I won't let you not take it. Like, you have to go and take it and follow your dream. And they do end up breaking up when she moves back home. And then years go by, she ends up meeting Lance, she ends up falling in love again, having all of these other experiences with him, and she ends up getting married. She's happy, she's living her life, and she's doing really great in her career. And then her career decides to send her overseas again. I forget where, is it like Amsterdam maybe? And when she arrives there, Oliver happens to be there as well, and it turns into a love triangle. Let me tell you, I don't normally like love triangle books because I don't normally like when there's like a clear front runner and you just kind of feel like you're wasting your time with the other person, because I'm like, you clearly know which one she's gonna pick. This truly, both Lance and Oliver were just both great heroes and just really supportive to Chloe, and like genuinely, she couldn't have made a wrong choice with both of them. Like, they both truly were great men for her. And I really liked that aspect of it. I liked that I didn't really know which one she was going to pick. Personally, in my heart, there was one that I was just the most drawn to. And this book just like devastated me. It really, really did. And I just loved every single moment of it. I think it like picked apart pieces of me that I thought like I had like kind of closed down, but reading all this just brought it back up again. It was just beautiful. I can't express enough just how much I loved this book and how much it just utterly wrecked me when I read it. And I'm really looking forward to doing a reread on it sometime because, I just love it so much. My favorite book by Marnie Mann. So now we got January, February, March, April, May. Now we're at June with an emotional one, My Life in Shambles by Karina Halley. Also, I'm really sad that I don't have the kissing couple cover. I don't know, that one wasn't available on Amazon anymore. Like, I like this cover, don't get me wrong, but I just love the like sunset one of the couple one. Anyways, so this one follows Padraig and, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Padraig and Valerie. So Valerie, she's down. She's down on her luck. She just recently broke up with her boyfriend or fiance, I can't remember, and they were living together, so she doesn't really have a place to live, and then she also ends up losing her job right before the holidays. So she is just down bad. So she goes back home, and her two sisters are planning a trip to Ireland, I think. Is it Ireland? And Valerie originally said no, because she's like, I can't with work or whatever. She gave like some excuse that she couldn't go, but now she doesn't really have an excuse not to, and she's like, you know what, I need to start saying yes to things in my life, and why not go on this trip with them? So she does, and when they're there, they're out at a pub one night, and she ends up meeting Padraig, who is sitting at the bar looking all broody, looking all sad, and it turns out that he is a famous rugby player over there, but he has some things going on in his life that I will let you find out when you read. I don't want to spoil anything, but anyways, they end up kind of hitting it off. They have an amazing night together. They're both kind of like, how are we so emotionally connected to each other in such a short amount of time? It's beautiful. Anyways, she ends up agreeing to be his fake fiance for him when he is going to go home, because he wants to be able to show his dad that like he's going to be okay and he's going to settle down because his dad is sick. And she ends up going home with him, and they have this fake arrangement. This book truly just... there are certain times where you read books and you read the love between the characters, and then there's ones where you like feel the love between the characters, and this was one where I just like felt it deep in my bones right from the beginning. Normally I don't like books where they like hook up right away, but this one, like even that first encounter of them like that night at the pub, just the connection was just there already. I don't even know how to explain it. It was so good, so beautiful. I totally understand why this is some of my friends' like favorite books. It was just beautiful. I loved every part of it, and just it's truly the definition of like just being there for someone through like the highs and the lows. Okay, next up, Deconstructing Delilah by Allison Rimes. This was my July pick of my favorite book of the year. So this one follows Delilah and Pope, and it's an age gap cult kind of romance, sex club romance. Got a lot of sex clubs on the list, or not on this list this year. There's just a lot of sex clubs this year, which, you know, fine by me. So at the beginning of this book, Delilah was raised in a cult, and she has recently escaped from it, and she's at this one like party or something, and she's like really, really fresh out of it. And at this party, she ends up meeting Pope, and they kind of have a bit of an encounter, but he knows where she just came from and what just happened to her, and he has, you know, some certain tastes, and he's like, literally, like, this is not going to go any farther. Like, you are not prepared for like what I want. And I just like, like, I can't do this to you when you're still just in this like very like heightened emotional, vulnerable state. So they kind of have this encounter, but then we jump ahead. I don't remember how many years, but I actually really, really loved the time jump in this one, because then we get Delilah, where she has really gone through a lot of healing over the years. I think it maybe might even be like 10 years or something. It's like a pretty significant jump. And she is now working as a receptionist at this one sex club that Pope does also frequent and know about, and they end up getting reconnected when he goes back there. But truly, she has just had she's like deconstructed kind of like the things that she was like raised to believe in, and just done a lot of healing inside. And now she's kind of ready. She's like, I'm in the real world. I've kind of like dealt with a lot of my shit, and now I'm just ready to kind of like explore myself and have fun. And when Pope pops back up, she's like, I'm still into you. And he's like, I'm still into you too, but like also I still can't like cross those lines with you. And she's like, fine, then I'm gonna go and explore myself in the club. And if you think he's just gonna let her do that, please. So anyways, it ends up being their romance. There's more to it, but again, I don't really want to like accidentally spoil anything and let like you just find out yourself as you read this. I remember this was Cheyenne and I's Smut Club pick for that month, and I just remember being really, really pleasantly surprised by it. We both really didn't have any expectations going into this one. Neither of us knew that it was a sex club book either, and like just the atmosphere of that was like kind of different than some of the other ones that we've read. And I don't know, I just remember really, really liking this one and liking the progression of their relationship and everything. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this one. I really enjoyed it. Okay, next up is, I would say, so I think there are like 2 on this list that I wouldn't classify as like romance, like traditional romance, and this is one of those. So for August, my favorite book of the month was Carrie Soto's Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Loved the absolute shit out of this. I am a Carrie Soto stan account. I am a Carrie Soto defender. I will defend her until the day that I die, because you know what? She's great. And she's not afraid to tell you, and you're gonna get mad at her because she knows that she's hot shit and she's not afraid to say it and be confident in herself. I'm sorry, that's a you problem. So Carrie is a tennis legend, tennis star, and she has retired and everything, whatever. But there's another player in the circuit who is now threatening to take one of her like titles that she has, or like a war, or one of her records or something that she has. And Carrie's like, I don't know if I like that. I don't like the idea of someone being able to take that away from me. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to make a comeback. And that's exactly what she does. And she announces her return to the sport, and it is very controversial. She was not a super popular player because of kind of like her attitude. She is a woman in the sport. She's faced with a lot of misogyny. A lot of people just don't like, they call her like the bitch and everything, and are just demeaning to her, because she's not afraid to celebrate a win. She's not afraid to tell you what she thinks. And that's why I love her. I love her bluntness, and I love that she's cocky and that she can back it up. That's what I like. I like when someone's cocky, but they can back it up. Like Connor Cobalt, cockiest motherfucker, but he backs it up, and I love that for him. And Carrie does the same thing. And her dad ends up being her coach and getting her ready to come back to the sport. And I'll kind of leave it at that. I loved this book so much. I've loved every single Taylor Jenkins Reid book that I read, but this one I think might be, I don't know. I go back and forth between Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones, and this one, but she is by far my favorite heroine that I've read from her. I just like loved Carrie so much and really, really enjoyed this book. Next up then, we got September, which I read. I was like, why is this book missing? Why is not the one that I'm about to talk about, but this other book in my head? I was like, why is this one missing? And then I looked and I read it at the same month as Secrets and Masks by Emerald Slytherin, and I was like, that's why. So this was my favorite book from September, but I read a lot of knockouts in September, so if you're noticing that one big glaring book is missing, just wait. Anyways, this is a Hermione fan fiction. So this is the other one that I wouldn't classify as traditional romance because it's fan fiction. So this one is another like captive war fanfic, which is how I like my Draco and Hermione. I want them to be in war. I want them to be in battle. I want them to be enemies. I want them to hate each other. I love all of that. Like, I don't care about like the cutesy ones. I want them at each other's throats. And this is so good. So Draco is, the demon mask for Voldemort. So Voldemort and the Order are still at war and everything. And Hermione is a very, very important member to the Order and one of their best soldiers. And Draco is a demon mask, and he has a dragon in this one. Let me tell you, he has a dragon. Like, what more do you want? You want bad boy Draco, and he's got a dragon? Sold. Sign me the hell up for this. I loved every moment of it. It's huge. It's like 1,000 pages, but it was so good. There's this one battle and Hermione ends up getting kidnapped by Voldemort's army and she is brought back in front of him, and she is basically given to Draco to be his prisoner and for him to try to like get inside of her head and find out Order's secrets. They start using her as a weapon against the Order. But let me tell you, there's so much more to this one, and Manacled was one of my favorite books that I read last year, and I still love Manacled. That's still my favorite Hermione. But what I loved in that one was that those two only ever had each other to rely on. And in this one, similarly, yes, they do. They truly are the only two people who really like love and understand the other, and seeing that like hate between them morph into love was beautiful. But also in this one, Draco has a found family. The found family trope of this one is so great. Theo, I have no idea who Theo is in like regular Harry Potter still. Like I don't remember him at all, but I've only ever watched the movies, so like I don't know if he's in the books more. But I cared about so many more characters in this one outside of Draco and Hermione, and like cared about their well-being, that it made me feel like more emotionally invested in like the cast of characters as a whole, where like in other ones I've really only ever cared about Draco and Hermione. But this one, it's devastating. It's such an emotional roller coaster. I cried so much reading it, and it's just beautiful. It's 1,000 pages. It's so long, but truly it's like worth the entire ride, and I need to own a physical copy. I still want to learn how to bookbind. I have too many projects right now. I don't have time to learn how to bookbind, but when I have a chance, I will be making this. Then for October, my favorite book from October is Lot 62 by Nordica Night. Now is the sun gonna, ooh, sun wants to pop out. We'll hold it over here then. So this one is the second book in the From Nothing series following Devin and Maddox. So you do have to read Garen Park in order to read this one. That's their first book. So I can't really tell you anything about the premise of this one because obviously it follows everything that happened book one. So I'll give you kind of the overview of the duet as a whole. So Devin and Maddox, they are enemies. It's hate to love, motocross, romance. So Devin and Maddox, they're raised in the same trailer park, and they were raised to hate each other by their fathers because they were rivals in motocross, and their dads always put them against each other because the dads always wanted their money selfishly. So they just always were pushing their sons, and that hate has just really grown up with them over the years. And it's still, even as adults, they hate each other. They beat each other up. They're egging each other on. They're just like always looking for a chance to be able to fight with each other. Until one night when Devin ends up showing up at Maddox's trailer, stabbed and brutally beaten, and he is looking for his older brother because they both have older brothers who are best friends, and he was trying to find his, and he's not there. Maddox is the only one at the trailer, and he's like, you're my enemy, but like I'm not gonna leave you out here to bleed and die, especially when Devin's dad is like trying to find him to like finish him off. So he's like, get inside, and he takes care of him, and you know, things just start to kind of shift that night. But let me tell you, even as they grow kind of like more attracted to one another, that hate between them still burns so bright, and they just love nothing more than pushing each other's buttons and getting under each other's skin. And that includes when they start kind of like hooking up and having a little bit of an enemies with benefits type of situation. Their connection is just it was so good. They're always at each other's throats or grabbing each other's throats, and it was just incredible. I love these two characters. They were so toxic together, but so good. And Lot 62 like didn't disappoint. It's their second book, and I was like, I hope that this isn't just going to be like fluff, and it truly wasn't. Still, even as they're like finally like in a relationship in this one, that angst between them like still burns, and it was just so good. Then for November, again, I read a lot of great books in November, but my favorite did end up being The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy, which I was super surprised how much I love this book because I don't really love second generation series. But this one, it was just so good. So this one follows Gigi and Ryder. You don't have to read the off-campus series in order to read this one. It's just like you would just kind of understand the cameos because Gigi is the daughter of Garrett and Hannah from The Deal in that series. So I really appreciated like the little cameos that we got of the off-campus people, especially when she went out to lunch with her Uncle Dean and Uncle Logan. I was like screaming and kicking my feet. But anyway, so this book in particular, so Gigi is a hockey player. And because her dad is like an NHL NHL legend and everything, she kind of like has always dealt with living in his shadow a little bit, and there's not really a lot of opportunities for female hockey players. So she really sets her sights on making the Olympic team. However, she does have a weakness on the ice, and that's like when she's behind the net or something, and she needs to work on that a little bit if she wants to have a shot at making the Olympic team. And Ryder is a hockey player who is now going to Briar U. So his hockey program and Briar U's hockey program ended up merging into one, and the teams are just not gelling. Ryder's team does not like the Briar U team, and the Briar U team doesn't like their team, and it's a lot of guys coming together and just clashing. And Ryder ends up being elected captain for one of them alongside Gigi's ex-boyfriend, who she broke up with, and he's been trying to win her back, but she is not having any of it. And Ryder is really trying to make sure that this team can gel. However, he does not have the best reputation. He broke a teammate's jaw previously, and the team that is signing him for after school is kind of like, you need to kind of like clean it up a little bit. Like, we don't really know if your image is like good for our team. So he thinks that getting in good with Garrett Graham and being a mentor at his hockey camp will like make him look good for younger kids. So he and Gigi end up striking up a bit of a deal where she'll put in a good word with her dad, and he will then help her behind the net on some of her hockey skills. And as they start doing this little like arrangement of helping each other out, they also just find themselves attracted to each other. And he proposes a bit of just like a benefits thing for the two of them, and it ends up going from there. I just love this. This was so cute. Off-campus books, like forever and always some of my favorite romance books, and this kind of gave me just that similar feeling to those where I didn't want to stop reading. They're fun. There's still like some serious moments popped into the mix, but truly just like the characters just love each other through the highs and the lows, and I just love it. So I really enjoyed this one. Now December. So granted, I am filming this on December 10th. So I'm only 10 days into the month, but just for the sake of this video, I want to include a book for this month. So will this end up actually being my favorite? I don't know, but I do think it probably will be, unless if I'm absolutely blown away by anything. And that's Where There's a Will by Jessie Walker. So I actually just finished this one this morning, and let me tell you, I felt the pain reading this book, like all the way to my fingertips. Like I felt like a churning in my gut at times reading this book. Like this book was just one that like had a physical reaction out of me as I was reading it. And it is so good. Definitely look up triggers on this one. The characters just go through a lot. So this one follows Will and Waylon, and it's a bit of a second chance, friends to enemies to lovers kind of romance. So after Will has experienced a loss of someone who was very, very close to him, who you'll find out, I don't remember like what you know going into it, so I'm gonna try to keep it vague because I didn't really know a lot of stuff going into this one, and I liked that. So I'm gonna kind of keep it vague so that way like I don't accidentally give anything away. But he's been on the road on his motorcycle, just kind of like escaping his grief and just not really sure where he's going to end up. I think, is he done with college? Like he's graduated, but he's had this loss in his life, and he's just kind of searching for where his place is. And he ends up going back to Shiloh, which was a town that he used to live in when he was younger. And when he returns there, he runs into an old friend who is like, why don't you stay a while? Brings him over to his bar. And when he arrives there, he ends up seeing Waylon, who he has not seen in years. And Will and Way were best friends when they were younger until they had a big falling out, and they have not spoken or seen each other since like this one summer back when they were like 12 or something. When he sees Waylon, immediately he is just kind of like thrown back into all of those memories, and Way is not very happy to see Will around. He's not very welcoming, and Waylon has been through, just as much as Will has been through, Waylon has been through a lot as well. And both of these two characters have so much trauma to work through, both individually and kind of together, and it just ends up being their romance. It is the first book in a duet, and this one does leave on a bit of a cliffhanger. Let me tell you, this book is extremely character driven, so if you don't like that, then I wouldn't recommend this one. But y'all know me, I love a good character driven story, especially when it's like a lot about healing and stuff. There's a lot of talk about like mental health in this one. Every character just has so much shit, and just seeing them just trying to do their best and trying to just make it day by day, it like killed me. It killed me, but I absolutely loved these two. And like I said, it just truly like had a physical reaction out of me every single time that I was reading it. Especially there's this one scene where Wade just kind of goes off the deep end and seeing Will find him like that. Oh, it was just heartbreaking. It's so good, and I can't wait to read book 2. I did start a hockey romance, because literally I just finished this. I started a hockey romance today because I'm like, I need something a little bit lighter before I jump back into more of these two, because I think book 2 is going to be even heavier. But absolutely loved it, blown away. And this for sure, like I said, I've literally only read 5 books this month, and this one, I'm just calling it, is probably gonna end up being my favorite. So anyways, that is it for today's video. I'm still hoping to have another one up on Friday for you guys. Sorry, last week I only had one. I've warned you. Actually, I'm announcing tomorrow, but by the time that you're watching this video, it will be announced. Take My Hand, book 2 in the Whisper Me Nothing series. That's gonna be coming out March 25th. I hit 70,000 words today, feeling really good about that. And I had warned that over December and January, because I do have an editing deadline of January 25th for this book. So I did warn you guys that some weeks I might only have one video, and last week was just too hectic. I couldn't get a second video out, but I'm hoping to get you 2 this week. So anyways, though, thanks for sticking with me being all over the place kind of over the next couple months. But I'm really excited about things that are coming to you guys, especially now that that's announced. I'm so excited for you guys to get Hayden and Carter's book. I have literally had the best time writing it. I have still not hit a block, which, knock on wood, and I'm like seeing the end in sight. I think I probably have about like 35,000 words left. So really closing in on the end. Makes me really sad to think that I'll be done with them. Like writing them, obviously not like editing them and working on them, but being done with that first draft. But I'm really excited for you guys to get them. So anyways, yeah, that's just, you know, upload schedule's a little erratic, but we're working through it. So anyways, that is it for today's video, and I will see you when I see ya.